G'day, welcome to Down in the Woodworks. Today I'm finally going to get to a nice little restoration project that's been on my to-do list for far too long. The first thing to do at this bench was to prepare the cast iron pieces for paint so I could leave them to dry while I did the woodwork part of the project. I was really lucky with these because there was no heavy paint or corrosion to take care of. They just had a light coat of surface rust that was easily cleaned up with a wire wheel and some rust converter. Once the rust converter had done its job, I washed off the excess and dried the pieces ready for paint. I used a gloss black epoxy enamel and put on about 4 to 5 coats. With the metal parts done, it was time to make the timber slats. I went to my wood pile and chose a couple of these oak boards that were kindly donated by subscriber Greg. I first cut them down to rough length. And then flattened one edge on the jointer to use against the fence on the table saw. I then ripped the boards down to the individual slats, but I left the width a little wider than I needed. Then I cleaned up the old finish on both faces using the thickness planer, and this also made sure all the slats were the same dimension. I wanted to use a thickness that addressed the edges as well, so I bolted some of the slats together and sent them through as one piece. I then trimmed the slats down to final length, which got rid of those bolt holes, as the boards were longer than I actually needed. I cut the first slat, and when I was happy it was the right length, I set up a stop on my crosscut sled and trimmed the rest of the slats. The original timbers for the seat back were never actually joined to each other. There's no physical joint there between them. They were just basically butted up against each other, and they were fixed to the cast iron insert just with a couple of screws on that edge there. And as you can see, a couple of screws on this edge here. So I want to do the same. I want to keep the joint together without actually having it glued. But because the timber's only joined on close to one edge here, and especially on these side pieces just close to that one edge there, I was concerned that over time that could shift either up or down, and that joint will look quite ugly or just look out of alignment. So what I want to do is I want to still pin them together somehow. So what I decided to do was to dowel these joints, but not in the typical way. The dowels were going to be floating, so not glued in at all, and they were made from solid 6mm brass rod. All the edges got a small 5mm round over. And then finish sanded with 220 grit sandpaper. And then it was time to apply the clear marine varnish. Don't you just love this part? Everything got 3 coats of varnish with a light sanding with 800 wet and dry in between coats. Once the varnish had cured, it was time to reassemble the seat, and I started with the backrest first. I used stainless steel screws here, and I pre-drilled all the screw holes because they were close to the edges of the boards and I didn't want to have any splitting. The backrest and the slats were fixed to the legs with 6mm galvanised cuphead bolts, which were later painted black as well. And that was about it for the bench. Well, I'm sure you'll agree that the bench turned out pretty nice. I've always liked the contrast of natural timber against gloss black or black, and yeah, I think that's pretty evident in this little project. And here's a photo of the bench seat back in its home in the backyard of a very good friend of mine. Dick, I hope you love the seat, mate. I know it took a long time, but hopefully you think it was worth the wait. Those of you who follow me on Instagram would have seen a couple of days ago that I launched a new logo. I do like the old logo, this one here, which originated from this sign that I made when I very first started doing YouTube. This sign was only ever meant to be a prop for an intro video, but it went from there to becoming my logo, as you know. The only problem with this logo though was it wasn't very friendly for printing and transfers on t-shirts and things, so I wanted something that was just plain, simple, modern, and easily replicated. So yeah, so that's the story behind the new logo. If it's your first time to the channel, then a huge welcome, and if not, a big thank you. As always, I really appreciate the time you guys spend watching along. If you haven't done so already, please consider subscribing to the channel, and if you do, hit that notification bell. That way you'll just know when I've posted a new video. If you like the video or any of my other videos, give them a thumbs up. It does help put me out there, and share them around as well with your friends. You can follow me on Instagram in between videos just to see what I'm up to. But until the next one, you guys have a great day.